What's up, sports fans? This is the Lucas Ross Sports Channel. We continue here with my 2024 college football schedule preview and projected record series. Up next are the Oklahoma State Cowboys. Before we preview this team's schedule for 2024 and give them an early projected record based on how tough that schedule is, let's take a look at what Oklahoma State did back in 2023. Here are my projections and predictions last year for the Oklahoma State Cowboys. My projection for them was 9-3, and my prediction for them was 8-4. So I had a little bit of a difference there with my projection and predictions last year for Oklahoma State. I did get the projection right, though, at 9-3. This team did go 9-3 last year in the regular season. And again, we're basing this off of the regular season from last season as well. But if you count their Big 12 championship loss and also count their bowl game victory, this Oklahoma State team finished with an overall record at 10-4 last year in 2023. Here was the schedule last year for Oklahoma State. You look at their non-conference schedule. They had to play Central Arkansas, Arizona State on the road out of the Pac-12, and they played South Alabama as well. And they ended up losing to South Alabama here on September the 16th, and that was definitely an embarrassing loss if you're an Oklahoma State fan. And then you look at the two losses that they had here in the Big 12 last year. Of course, lost to Iowa State here on the road in their first official Big 12 matchup, and then they lost to UCF there on the road as well. They got hammered in that UCF game back on November 11th, but this team was still able to come away with a appearance in the Big 12 championship last year. And again, Oklahoma State had a pretty good season. They had a 10-win season last year as well. Let's now look ahead to 2024. Here is the schedule for Oklahoma State in 2024. Before we go game by game and preview this entire schedule for Oklahoma State, let's take a look at who they will play in the non-conference. So this is their non-conference schedule. They will play 3 non-conference teams this year. They'll play South Dakota State, Arkansas, and Tulsa here on the road. So you look at this non-conference schedule, they are going to be playing South Dakota State here, one of the top teams, of course, in the FCS level. They won it all last year in the FCS college football season. And then you look at Arkansas, of course, coming out of the SEC. That makes the non-conference schedule a lot tougher here for this Oklahoma State team. And then you got Tulsa on the road. Obviously, I think that's their easiest game here on this non-conference schedule. And yes, South Dakota State and Arkansas won't be easy games here for Oklahoma State. But the good news about these non-conference games, they're going to get both of these games at home. So that's the non-conference schedule for Oklahoma State. Let's now go back to the original schedule here for the Cowboys. And let's go game by game now and preview this entire schedule here. So they start things off here with South Dakota State there on August 31st. And then there's that big Week 2 matchup against Arkansas here on September the 7th. And like I said, the good news about this game is that they get this game at home. And then they play Tulsa here on the road on September the 14th. So Oklahoma State gets 3 non-conference games to start out the year. And again, one of those non-conference games is on the road. And then they play Utah here to open up Big 12 play on September 21st. Again, not a non-conference game. This is, of course, now a Big 12, conference game. Utah, of course, one of those newcomers this year in the Big 12 conference. They will get Utah here at home this year. And then they play Kansas State here on the road on September the 28th. Tough place to play here at Kansas State here on September the 28th. Then they get to the month of October. They'll play West Virginia here at home on October the 5th. And then you get a bye week here before playing BYU here on the road on October the 19th. And then they play Baylor on the road as well here on October 26th. So they get back-to-back road games here in the month of October against BYU and Baylor, 2 teams that are not really coming off good seasons last year. Baylor was even worse than BYU. They only won 3 games last year. That's what Baylor did. And then they get to the month of November. They'll play Arizona State once again. This is the 3rd straight year in a row that the Oklahoma State Cowboys have played Arizona State. But this time it's a Big 12 conference game instead of a non-conference game. And then they play TCU here on the road on November 9th. And then they get their second bye week here on the schedule. Then they'll play Texas Tech here at home on November 23rd. And then they close things out here with Colorado on the road here on a Friday on November 29th. So that is the schedule for Oklahoma State in 2024. And when I look at this schedule, I really think it's a pretty easy schedule for Oklahoma State, especially in the Big 12. Not in the non-conference, though. So you got two tough non-conference games. I know South Dakota State is a non-conference team, and also they are an FCS team. But let's be honest, South Dakota State is a pretty good FCS team, and then Arkansas, of course, makes the non-conference schedule even a little bit tougher. But again, you look at this Big 12 schedule. They get Utah at home, West Virginia at home. Those are two games that you definitely want to have at home if you're Oklahoma State. But the bad news is that you have to play Kansas State on the road. So that is the schedule again for Oklahoma State in 2024. Let's now get to the projection here for this Oklahoma State team. And this is not an official prediction. This is simply a projection based on how tough the schedule is. Here is the scale that I use here for my projections. If it's a 1% game in the red, these are games where Oklahoma State has no chance of winning in and also very well competing in as well. But 20% games in the orange, these are games that are going to be where Oklahoma State will be about a couple touchdowns of underdogs. 40% games in the yellow, games that Oklahoma State will be a heavy underdog in by about a touchdown. And then 50-50 games will stay in the white, games that can go either way. 60% games in the purple, games where Oklahoma State will be favored by a touchdown. 80% games in the blue, they'll be favored by at least a couple of touchdowns. And then the 99% games here in the green, these are the easy wins here for Oklahoma State. So we'll start with that percentage first here for Oklahoma State. The games that I think Oklahoma State will win pretty easily, and also they count as automatic wins as well. And I think you got two of them on this schedule, South Dakota State and Tulsa, two non-conference teams here. South Dakota State, I think that game is at least at 90% though. South Dakota State, I think, is going to be a very tricky one here for Oklahoma State. And like I said, I know South Dakota State is a FCS team, but usually this FCS teams, usually pull off some upsets like this. And it wouldn't really shock me if South Dakota State did pull off an upset here, but it wouldn't really be a good start for Oklahoma State to open up their season. But I think that game is at least at 90%. Tulsa, I know it's on the road. It should be in the blue, but I'm going to put this one and put it in the green for right now. I think this game is at least at 90% as well, just because it's on the road anyway. So those are the two games where I think Oklahoma State will win. Not really big, because these two games are going to be at least at 90%. I think Oklahoma State at the end of the day will take care of business as of right now in both of these games. So let's now go to the next percentage. The blue games at 80%. The games where Oklahoma State will be favored by a couple of touchdowns. And I just got one game here on the schedule, and that's Arizona State. Arizona State here at home on November 2nd. I think Oklahoma State will be favored by a couple touchdowns. I can't put it in the green, though. I know Arizona State was not really good last year, and I know they haven't been really good in the last couple years. But last year they had a first-season head coach. I don't really know what to expect from the Arizona State Sun Devils in their first year, of course, in the Big 12. This is not a non-conference game anymore. This is now officially a Big 12 matchup, so I think Oklahoma State playing at home, I think they definitely will be favored by a couple touchdowns. If this game was on the road, I definitely would put it in the purple. Speaking of purple, let's go to the games now where Oklahoma State will be favored by at least a touchdown at 60%. And I got four of them, or actually five of them on this schedule. BYU on the road, Baylor on the road, TCU on the road, Texas Tech at home, and then also Colorado on the road as well. So all five of these games, I think Oklahoma State, with the talent that they have on the roster from last year and based off of where these teams were from last season, I think you can favor Oklahoma State in all five of these games by at least a touchdown here in the purple. The Texas Tech game, though, at home, I think that's definitely a trap game. BYU and Baylor are both trap games as well, but based off of what BYU and Baylor did last year, those two teams were not even good, so that's the reason why I'm favoring Oklahoma State as of right now in both of these games. Same thing with TCU. I know Colorado made some adjustments last year, and they do have a bright future ahead of them, but as of right now, I'm going to favor Oklahoma State just because they have the more talented rosters out of all these five teams that you're seeing here in the purple. So those five games, I think you can favor Oklahoma State by at least a touchdown. I don't have any underdog games for Oklahoma State this year. I think this team has a well enough talented roster to where they can be like a favorite in almost every single one of their games. But the rest of the games that you're seeing here in the white are pretty much 50-50 games. You got Arkansas and Utah at home, Kansas State on the road, and then West Virginia at home as well. I think all four of these games are pretty much games that can go either way. You look at Arkansas, I know they're coming off a really bad season last year, but you can't really underestimate an SEC team when you're playing them in the non-conference. So with that being said, I think Arkansas is a 50-50 game. Utah is definitely a 50-50 game. Both rosters are pretty even between these two teams. Kansas State, both rosters the same thing, are pretty even. Then the same thing here with West Virginia based off of where they were last year. I have to put this game as a 50-50 game as well. I know I could put that game in the purple, but I'm going to favor make this a 50-50 game for right now. But again, Oklahoma State gets that game at home as well. So I think they split these 50-50 games. I'd say they win like 2 out of the 4 games here in the 50-50 range. I think they can at least win 2 out of the 4 games. And that brings me to my projected record here for this Oklahoma State team. So we count the green games as those wins. We count those couple games that you're seeing in the green as wins. Then we count that one game as a blue game as a slight win, but still win enough. And then you count the purple games. You average those out at 60%. Split those purple games as well. And then you split those 50-50 games. Like I said, I think they win 2 out of the 4 games here in the 50-50 range. And then you average it out at 50%. You get an overall projected record for Oklahoma State. The projected record comes out to be 10-2 for the Oklahoma State Cowboys in 2024. Like I said, when you split those 50-50 games at 2 out of the 4, that would give you a projected record of 10-2. Let's say they beat Arkansas and Utah at home, and then they lose to Kansas State and West Virginia here. That would give you a projection of 10-2. Then they do the opposite. They would lose to Arkansas and Utah at home, and then they beat Kansas State on the road in West Virginia here at home as well. And that would still give you a projected record of 10-2. So 10-2 comes out to be the projected record here for this Oklahoma State team. I think Oklahoma State has a chance to be pretty solid like they were last year in 2024. Give me your thoughts on this Oklahoma State team down in the comments below. What do you think their projected record is as of right now? And also give me your worst case scenario and best case scenario for this Oklahoma State team down in the comments below. Thanks for watching this video, and stay tuned here for more sports content videos on my Lucas Ross Sports Channel.